Understandably, there's so much fear about the new tax reforms, and the biggest reason for all the panic is simply misinformation. You see, most of the conversations you see online, especially from influencers and self proclaimed finance experts, people have been made to believe that from January 1st, 2026, every single person in the country will have 25% of their personal income automatically taxed, regardless of income, employment type, or business structure, which of course is not entirely true. But what does the law actually say?
What does the law say?
The new tax reforms is comprised of 4 new acts, which collectively amount to about 397 pages. Now, there is no way I can break down every little detail in this video. So we're going to only cover what matters, starting with, of course, the infamous personal income tax. So the personal income tax, also known as pay as you earn, is the simplest form of taxation in the country. And as the name implies, it is a tax paid by individuals on incomes that they earn, whether from salaries, business profits, rent, investments, or other sources of income. And it is based on a progressive system, meaning the more you earn, the higher percentage of tax you have to pay. So it is not like a flat 25% rate like what you've been seeing online. And I'm going to show you practical examples in a second. But before calculating your tax, you can deduct allowable expenses and contributions, like say your NHF, your rent, relief, and insurance, and things like that. We're going to see that in a second. And then the remaining amount becomes your taxable income, and that's what your tax is applied on. So now, if you're renting, you can deduct 20%, but not exceeding 500,000. And once your deductions are removed, we then apply the tax bands, and the structure looks like this. If you earn below 800,000, you will be taxed at 0%. Then the next 2.2 million will be taxed at 15%. Then your next 9 million will be taxed at 18%. After that, your next 13 million will be taxed at 21%. And then the next 25 taxed at 23%. Anything above 50 million will be taxed at 25%. So you are taxed the more you earn. Now, there are 3 resources I can confidently recommend for you to use when calculating your taxes. And the first one is, of course, the personal income tax calculator by the Presidential Physical Policy and Tax Reforms Committee. It's on their website. I'll leave the link to all of this in the description. And then the next one is my Google Sheet Finance Tracker. So in this finance tracker, you use it to keep records. Record keeping is so important right now that Nigeria is setting up this whole trying to enforce the tax reforms. With this Google Sheet template, you can plan your month, you can plan your manage your finance, you can also manage your payroll, you can manage your subscriptions, you can manage pretty much anything that you do in your business. And it also has the tax calculator that I personally designed, and I've made sure that it's accurate to the physical reforms calculator on their website. And then you can also use our tax calculator that we have on our website. It's TheBrimFactor.com. Again, it's exactly the same thing, just a little nicer than the official one, if I must say so myself. But whichever one of these 3 you want to use, you will see the links in the description. On the left side, you can enter your gross annual income and your annual rent. And then you can also toggle this down to add all the deductions we talked about earlier, your NHF, NHIS, and pension, and all of that. Most people don't do this, but if you do, it's a very nice way to reduce your tax burden if you go with the pay as you earn taxing system. So, anyways, let's say that your annual income is 3 million naira in Nigeria, and then your rent is 1 million naira. So, if we calculate, your annual tax is 300,000 naira a year, 25,000 naira a month, and your take home, your net annual income will then become 2.7 million, putting you at a tax bracket of 10%. Your rent relief is 200,000. So your rent relief cannot exceed 500,000. And what that means is, I think up to 2.5 million or thereabout, 2.5 million you've maxed out. So anything above 2.5 million now, you always have a rent relief of 500,000. So let's say, for instance, your rent is 6 million or 65 million, whatever it is. It will be capped at 500,000. That's what that cap means. But then let's make this more realistic. So somebody earning 3 million in Nigeria should be paying somewhere. You can afford to pay maybe 1 million naira in rent, and that will be 200,000 naira relief. So say you earn 6 million, your annual tax will be about 834,000 naira, and you are in the tax bracket of 13.9%. So it's that simple to calculate. So if we take a look at the tax breakdown, you can see that the first 800,000 is taxed at 0. So everybody, regardless of how much you make, your first 800,000 naira will not be taxed. Then the next 2.2 million you make is going to be taxed at 15%. So we have 15% of this 2.2 is what we have here. And if you have more money left, it falls into the next band. Depending on the amount you have, you keep going down and paying more taxes, but it's not a whole number, the same amount of tax for all the amount of money you make. It's just going to keep trickling down until 25%, which is 50 million and above, will be taxed at 25%. So for instance, if they make 20 million, you can see that they now extend into the 21% band, and then their 7.8 million is going to be taxed at 21%. If we increase this number and say make it, I don't know, 200 million there, now we're paying serious money in taxes. You can see we filled up all the boxes, but all of this money are broken down and taxed on different bands ranging from 0 to 25%. So some people, depending on how much they make, may pay 3% in tax, or 5%, or 10, or 15, 13, 20, 25, but it's going to be 25 for the top earners. If you're finding this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel, because I cover tools, resources, and real-world workflows that make life easier for solopreneurs, digital professionals, and small business owners. I don't just research, I do this stuff for myself, and I share my own results. And also, I'll be sharing exactly how I structure my business and handle compliance going forward, now that we now have these new tax reforms. Also, if you're a freelancer and solopreneur who earns in foreign currencies, I thought to mention that Rayness is currently running a campaign where for the next couple of months, your deposits will be free of charge. So you want to take advantage of that campaign to keep more of your money. Moving on, let's go over some of the most important highlights of the new tax reforms that you should really pay attention to. Now, the first one is that the majority of Nigerians won't pay taxes. And this is actually a bit of a mixed bag, because most Nigerians don't earn up to 1 million naira a year, at least according to the statistics, and which is below, the taxable threshold. So in a sense, yes, it's commendable that the government isn't taxing people who are already struggling below minimum wage. But on the flip side, it also highlights deeper issues that most Nigerians are not even earning enough to fall within the tax net. And also, one can argue that the rent relief capped at 500,000 and then the threshold of 800,000 taxed at 0 is negligible. It's not significant, because if you factor in inflation and how much people pay for rent, you hardly find a good home to rent in Nigeria less than 1 million right now. And then the high rate of things in the market, it's incredibly difficult to survive on such relief. I don't even know if you can call that relief. But then I don't want to throw in my personal opinions here. I just want to share with you what the new reform says. So that will be a story for another day or a different video. Now, the second thing is, if you run a small business with an annual turnover of less than 100 million naira, your entity will pay 0% corporate income tax. I saw different reports about the threshold being 50 million naira. But the chairman of the Committee on Fiscal Policy and Tax Reforms in Nigeria, Mr. Taiwo Yedele, stated himself that it is 100 million.
So what we now have under this new tax law is up to 100 million. So you make up to 100 million naira a year. You don't even need to pay corporate income tax. It's 0%.
Companies with turnover above the small company threshold will pay corporate income tax of 30%, a new 4% development levy, and capital gains tax of 30% instead of the previous 10%. So essentially, larger companies will be paying more tax, but with clearer rules and fewer overlapping levies. Before now, forex traders could be taxed on gains without relief for losses. The new approach is that only net gains are taxed. So you can record and report your losses and your gains, and only the gains are taxable. For solopreneurs, freelancers, and content creators, if you operate as an individual, you will report your income as an individual, meaning you apply the personal income tax brackets I just showed you, and then you pay taxes based on wherever your income falls. But a smarter option for many solopreneurs and creators, especially if you earn in the tens of millions, may be to incorporate and run your business under an LLC. Not just a business name registration, mind you. It has to be an LLC. Like I've already stated, smaller companies will not be taxed. So if you run your business as a small company, that might be a strategy for you to lower your tax burden. As a creator or a solopreneur who earns money on your own and you're not a regular employee. But then you want to be very careful with this strategy because, yes, your small company may make significantly more and not be taxed as an individual who makes the same amount. But then you can't just transfer all of your company earnings to your personal account and then start funding your lifestyle. Because once you do that, once the money crosses from your business to your personal, you have broken the corporate veil. And then you will now be taxed as an individual. So while using an LLC can help you legally pay less taxes, you need to be very strategic about it. Else, it will be pointless. In the coming videos, I'm going to cover how you can properly structure your business. Now, one concern a lot of people have is what happens if I overpay tax? If you overpay tax, there's now a clearer framework to get your money back. I'm not quite sure how the process will go, but at least the chairman of the Tax Reforms Committee confirmed that it is being taken into consideration and it's possible.
Under this new tax law, we have now created a framework that will enable people to get refund easily. And for VAT, for example, the provision of the new law says government must pay you back your money within 30 days, no questions asked.
If you lie or inflate your deductions, you'd be committing perjury, and there is a 200% penalty on the amount you owe.
But there's also a responsibility on you that if you make false claims, you pay penalty of 200% of the amount.
So while you can get your taxes back, you want to be very careful not to lie on your tax returns. And then to spur reproduction and jobs, certain sectors like agriculture, manufacturing, and others can get multi-year tax holidays once they've been verified as truly producing and operating in that exempted industry. They can expect 5 to 10 years of incentives and tax breaks, and this is designed to lower startup costs and encourage local production. Now let's clear up some of the biggest misconceptions about the new tax reforms, because a lot of what's being shared online is simply not true. Many people think that January 1st, 2026 is the official date for the implementation of the new tax policy. But according to the chairman of the Presidential Committee on the Tax Reforms, nothing automatically takes effect on that date. So the date only marks when the framework starts, but actual implementation will happen after a gazette and proper notice from the Minister of Finance. But besides, these things usually take time. I presume that it will even take years to get the implementation right. But that's not to say you shouldn't start putting your house in order. So you want to make sure that you implement your structure, keep your records, and keep your receipts. And I'm not joking, keep your receipts, because it could help you in court if ever that day comes. But while you do all that, just know that January 1st, 2026 is not tax doomsday. Nobody's just going to wake up to new penalties overnight. There's also a common misconception that any money that comes into your account automatically means it is taxable. Money in your account could be a gift, a loan, or funds you're holding for a project. And that's why record keeping is crucial. I've heard that the government will directly withdraw taxes from people's accounts. That's just absurd. The government won't just wake up and start taking money out of your bank account. Under the new system and pretty much every other place in the world, you are required to self-declare your income and file your taxes by yourself. However, the government, using technology and data through your tax ID, NIN, BVN, and bank records, will verify your declaration. So if you report an earning of 1 million, but your spending shows 5 million, they may invite you to clarify. And if you can't, then that's where the penalties will apply. So yes, the government can see the patterns, but they won't directly touch your money in your bank account without following due process. So if you're a low-income earner, breathe. I guess that's the reason why he literally said,
Let the poor breathe. Don't suffocate them.
if you earn around 100k a month, you will pay little to no taxes. But even as your income increases, you're not suddenly going to start paying 20 or 25%. You may find yourself in the 5%, 10 or 15% tax bracket. The system is progressive and the lowest earners are protected. For small businesses and solopreneurs and content creators earning well above minimum wage, it is possible to set proper structures with using an LLC to significantly reduce your tax burden. And if you want a very simple path to formation of your LLC, I will personally recommend Prosper to create your LLC. But then, structure is nothing without records. So whether you're an individual or you run an LLC, without proper records, you're going to struggle every tax season. If I had to sum up the reforms in one line, I would say that it is about putting structures in place, and there's really nothing wrong with that. But the main concern is with implementation and trust. Will the government be able to properly implement this? And even if they do, will people be willing to cooperate in a country where we use generators and solar to provide our own electricity? We use boreholes to provide our own water. We use area boys to fill our own potholes and maintain our own roads out of our own pocket. A country where we don't have a number to call in crisis situation. And even when you do, you will be shocked if anybody shows up. And the list just goes on and on. But I'm not here to make a case against the government or the new tax laws. We can only hope that things are done right. I'll see you in the next video.